Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I have not filmed a video for this channel in so long, but I'm really excited to be making this for you guys today. I have been transitioning jobs, just a little bit busy, so that's why there's been a bit of a gap. But today, even though it's super late, it's actually February 16th as I'm filming this. Who knows what day it is when it's actually going to get uploaded. I wanted to film like a what I watched in January. And I know it's super late, but I think these videos can be relevant even if it's like way past the month, because I watch movies not just that were released in January, but just, you know, random movies in general. So I think that this could still be fun for us to talk about, even though it is way past January now. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up my Letterboxd right now, and by the way, if you guys want to keep up to date with movies I'm watching, I sometimes rate them or review them, then go ahead and follow me on Letterboxd. I'll leave the link down below in the description box as always. Okay, so January 2022, the first month of the year, and in December I did like a Christmas horror challenge. I was super worn out, so in January I didn't watch a whole lot of movies. I actually watched 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 movies only in January, and they weren't even all horror, but I was super burned out of movies in January. So starting with January 2nd, fresh into the month, I watched Titane. I think it's pronounced Titane. It's a French film. I think it falls into like the French extremity movement. And this movie, boy, was this a way to kick off 2022. This movie was insane. If you've not seen this movie, let me tell you, it is insane. I still have not rated it. I didn't know what to rate it because personally, I didn't actually enjoy this movie because it was just, it had such a weird vibe to it. And I understood that it was going for these deeper themes and everything, but it was so disturbing to me that I couldn't even really like get myself into it. I was just so disturbed and uncomfortable watching it most of the time. Especially watching what happens to Alexia, and I just don't think that body horror is my thing. Like, I do like movies like The Thing every once in a while, but sometimes these body horror movies get to be way intrusive and crazy. So Titane was one of those where it was so much for me to take in as I was watching it. I was so disturbed at what I was seeing that I couldn't really appreciate all of the other aspects of the film. But let me tell you, the performance by Alexia was great. And that's all I'm gonna say about this movie because I don't want to get into it. I don't want to talk about this movie. I don't think I'll ever watch it again. It's super disturbing. But if you're into body horror or other like French extremity type films, which I think this might fall into, then I think you would enjoy Titane. And it's a very well made movie, don't get me wrong. Maybe it was just bad timing, like to start off the new year 2022, I wasn't in the mood for this kind of movie. So I watched that one, and then on the 7th, so big gap between watching movies, I had to take a break. On the 7th I watched Deliverance, which I'd never seen before, which is shameful. I know this is an iconic classic movie. It was released in 1972. It had some big actors in it, and I gave it a 4 out of 5. Now, this movie has one scene that's really, really hard to watch, and it happens pretty early on in the film. And let me actually look up what the characters' names were because I don't remember. It's been a while since I saw this. But there's a scene with one of the guys, Bobby. Yeah, it was definitely Bobby. That is just really, really difficult to watch. And let me tell you, when I was starting this movie, I thought it was going to turn into like a Hills Have Eyes type of situation. I didn't realize what type of movie this was. And this movie was so good. It was so deep. It dove into so many themes of like emotions you might feel after going through the event that these group of men went through, which I'm being very vague about it in case some of you guys have not seen it yet. But there is just this emotional, like psychological story going on. I didn't think it was going to be that. I thought it was going to just be like one of those hillbilly horrors, you know? But it's not. And so it also has like, it touches on things like classism almost, and like the us versus them mentality. Kind of reminds me of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the 70s and how that dove into themes like that. So I really recommend that one. There's just one scene that might be hard to watch, and honestly I skipped through it. I was watching it on my iPad. I just fast forwarded through the scene because it just was going on and I didn't want to watch it anymore. But besides that, it doesn't really get much worse than that scene right there. After that, it's just pretty smooth sailing. So if you haven't seen Deliverance yet, I recommend it. As I said, I gave it a 4. Next, because I was in the mood for something that would be a little bit more of like actual hillbilly horror, if you will. I don't think hillbilly is a good word for me to be using, but movies like The Hills Have Eyes. So the next movie I watched was The Hills Have Eyes on the 10th of January. This movie came out in 1977, and I also watched on the 12th The Hills Have Eyes remake from 2006. Okay, so I made a separate video about those, and if you want to hear my rankings, I suggest you go watch it. I go way in depth, I rant, I go off about these movies, and I think you guys would be entertained. And by the way, if you are interested in The Hills Have Eyes and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I had a really good video idea where I talk about how The Hills Have Eyes and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of like feed off each other, and even how the remakes. Basically, there's a lot of really stark similarities between Texas Chainsaw Massacre and The Hills Have Eyes that I wanted to just make a whole video about. It would require me like rewatching all the movies again just to make sure I could take notes and stuff, but if you'd be interested in me doing a video like that, let me know. So then on the 14th we have Scream 2022. I need to silence my phone. That's a weird time for my phone to vibrate, don't you guys think? So the new Scream is such a good time, and I know some people didn't actually like it that much, but for me I felt like it was done really competently and it fits really well into the rest of the franchise, even though it's not directed by Wes Craven, which is a really hard like task to accomplish. So I really love the new Scream. I thought it was a really good time, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. If that's the rating I gave it first watch, I might like rewatch it and just make sure and see if I would still give it that same rating, because I was so excited when it came out that I might need to like rewatch it just to make sure. But you know, on Letterboxd they only give you out of 5 stars, and so you have to kind of round. I think I would give it more like a 3.8 or 3.9, but I rounded up to a 4. If you want to see more about the new Scream and you want to see me actually rank the entire Scream franchise, then I actually made a whole video about that. It's full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen the movies, I wouldn't suggest going to watch it, but if you're interested in what I have to say about those movies, then I would go ahead and watch that video. So next, on January 20th, I watched The Fly from 1986. I, again, did not rate this one. I didn't know what to rate it. It's another like body horror almost, and it is really disgusting. I didn't even know how disgusting this movie was going to be. I haven't really seen Cronenberg films up until last month, and let me tell you guys, I don't think Cronenberg is for me. Even though admire his work, it is just so like repulsive sometimes, and so The Fly is an extremely repulsive movie. It's a very good movie. I love following the story. I think it's really interesting, but by the end I was so grossed out by it, and the body horror and the effects are amazing in this, grade A, so I'm sure most of you have seen that already, but this was my first watch and I'm still traumatized from that. I actually think that it's more repulsive than The Thing, because even though The Thing is extremely gross, The Fly focuses more on like transformation horror. It's so disgusting. The body horror in it is even worse than The Thing. I think The Thing is like almost like fun to look at, like it's so disgusting but it's interesting to look at, whereas The Fly is like grotesque, if that makes sense. So that's another one where it would take a lot for me to rewatch that again, because there's a couple of things that happen that are just so disgusting in this movie. Otherwise though, I kind of want to give it a 4 out of 5, even though I haven't formally rated it on my Letterboxd yet, because I think it deserves like that high of a rating. Next, on the 23rd, I decided to watch Dead Ringers, another Cronenberg. I decided to give Cronenberg another chance after not being able to really handle The Fly. And this one I didn't enjoy. I thought it was kind of like gross in a weird way. Like I don't know how to explain it. It was just kind of like a perverted movie, if that makes sense, but it was also there was a lot of unnecessary stuff, I felt like. And I cannot tell you guys that there was that much horror, because there wasn't. I don't think it was very strong on the horror, and it was really slow and took a while for anything to happen. I still felt like nothing was happening. I was getting really bored watching it. But I know that this movie is highly rated. I just guess I wasn't in the right mood for it, or maybe I was expecting something totally different going in. I didn't really rate that one. I didn't know what to rate that one either. There's a lot of like unrated movies in January, it seems like. So then in the same night after Dead Ringers, I watched Sleepaway Camp, which came out in 1983 for the first time. And let me tell you guys, I cannot believe this movie. So I really actually enjoyed this movie. I thought it was like a better camp movie than even Friday the 13th. I'm sorry, I know a lot of people are probably going to hate for that, but I think that Friday the 13th was just too generic, you know? And this one, there was a twist that I just would not have expected. Like, this twist actually got me. And it has the same, like, cheesy, campy vibes as well as Friday the 13th. There are just some choices made in this movie. There are some characters that I don't understand. Like, it's hilarious. And then there's also some really problematic elements in this movie too. So I can understand why maybe it has more of a cult following, but it's not talked about by everybody. I could see why a lot of people wouldn't want to watch something like this. But after that twist, I am still traumatized from that ending scene, which I just don't understand. Like, it's hilarious in a way. I can't really talk about it. Do you guys want a sleepaway camp video? Because I could make a sleepaway camp video. But it's hilarious in a certain way where it's like the things that don't add up in this movie, and then the cheesy vibes and the lines and the delivery and the characters, you know. But putting all that stuff aside, it still managed to have a really strong twist at the end. But it's also just a really problematic movie, but it does hold a pretty good theme, which I can't tell you guys because it would spoil the whole movie if you have not seen it. Okay, so the next day I was really on a kick and I watched Terrified from 2017, which is a film from Argentina actually. So it is subtitled, it is in Spanish, and I had heard about this movie before. I thought it looked really good and just paranormal and scary and just like a good change up from the things that I've been watching recently, which haven't really involved this paranormal aspect to them. And Terrified was so good. So in the way of story or plot, there wasn't a whole lot there. I'll tell you guys that. It's not like a very complex plot that leads to some kind of deeper meaning or anything like that. But at the same time, it isn't like the cheesy teenagers like investigating a haunted place or anything like that either. So it's kind of its own thing, but the focus in this movie is not really too much about the plot. It's more about the scares and what they can do to scare you. And I was really in the mood for this type of movie because a lot of movies that are scary might be scary in a psychological sense or something like that. This movie is just scary. There are some visuals in it and a few different scenes which just sent chills down my spine, and I was satisfied with that. I gave it a 4 out of 5 even though it's lacking so much, just because it's so strong on those scares and that's what it chose to focus on, and I can appreciate it for that. I think that they were really effective. And so if you have not seen Terrified, I really recommend that you go see it if you're in for something spooky. We're getting down to the end here, so I have one more horror on the list and then 2 non-horrors. So on the 26th, I watched Stay Alive from 2006. Okay, I don't know what to tell you guys about this movie. I rated it a 2 out of 5. It might honestly be more like a 1.5. I know some people love this movie, but let me tell you, this movie felt so dated because of the graphics and the focus on the video game. Not just that, but the lines in this movie are something else. Like how did they write this film? How? I don't understand. It's almost hilarious. And sometimes unintentionally so. And the characters are just like borderline ridiculous. I mean, they are ridiculous. All of the characters that I thought were funny enough to follow or interesting enough to follow were pretty much killed off early in the film, so I was bored for the rest of the time, and I felt like they didn't do anything with the kills or the graphics. I do understand maybe they were trying to appeal to like a much younger audience because it was based on this video game, so they didn't make it as violent as they could have. But there weren't really any interesting kills in this movie, unfortunately, even though I thought there would be because it's a movie about a video game and being trapped in it and being killed in the video game. I was disappointed, and the reason I was even watching it in the first place is because I watched it when I was really young and I remembered it being good. And of course, when you watch a movie when you're young, you're going to remember it as being good, especially as a horror movie. Anything's going to scare you at that age. So I remember it being good and scary, and then rewatching it, I kind of just ruined all the nostalgia as I realized that it was actually just kind of dumb. So down to my last 2, these 2 kind of go together. On the 29th, I watched Horrible Bosses from 2011, one of my favorite movies of all time, one of my favorite comedies of all time. And I really just wanted to throw in some comfort watches at the end of the month and some funny things, as I wasn't really feeling horror. I felt like a lot of the horror that I watched that month I didn't actually like, and then some of it was just a little bit too much. And so I had to end the month off strong with a couple of movies that I really enjoy. So I watched Horrible Bosses. I just cannot get over how funny this movie is. Every single line is like quotable in this movie. It is hilarious. It's a little bit like, it aged a little bit because comedies always do, and it's like a decade old now, but I still love it as much as I did back when it came out. My hair is just kind of a mess today. We're going to have to ignore the hair, but finally, on the 30th, I watched 21 Jump Street, which goes with Horrible Bosses kind of. Another really, really funny like action comedy. I find this one hilarious. 2012, by the way. So these movies both are like a decade old now, which is insane, but they're both super good. I don't even think that as many really, really funny comedies like that come out these days. I think there was like an era for it, and hopefully it comes back around again, but I really miss these types of movies, and 21 Jump Street is one of my favorites still, so I watched that one. And with that, that concludes everything that I watched in the month of January 2021. So my highest rating of the entire month, there's 3. So Terrified, 4 out of 5, Deliverance, 4 out of 5, and Scream, oh there's 4. Scream and then The Fly. So I gave all of those a 4 out of 5, and I don't really know if I want to like bump it up to 4.5 stars. I think that maybe the one deserving of that might be Deliverance, so we'll see. But Deliverance was definitely really, really high. In fact, I think that might be the best one that I saw the whole month. So yeah, I think I'm gonna change my rating a little bit higher for Deliverance, you guys. And the lowest rated was Stay Alive, unfortunately. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. Let me know if you saw the movies that I talked about in the video down below in the comments. And of course I'm going to try to do like a what I watched in February as well, even if it does come a little late like this one did. But I'm sorry about the lateness again, and thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, because I haven't really come up with a complete posting schedule yet, and I'm not always posting every single week. So if you want to be notified, make sure to hit that bell icon. This is still like a fairly new channel. I haven't really posted much on it, even though I've had it since like August of 2021. So I'm hoping to put a little more effort into it when I get some more time. And if you want to follow what I'm watching more on like a weekly basis, then go ahead and follow my Letterboxd account. Okay, I'll see you guys in the next video. Again, thanks for watching. Bye!